My job today is to tell you about the Cretaceous, and I have been fortunate enough to work in all four periods that we're discussing today: the Ediacaran, the Cambrian, the Cretaceous, and the Cenozoic. But I'm going to try and argue that the Cretaceous is the best of all of them. However, I think all of them are fantastic. And I'm going to help argue why they're fantastic with the help of the fairy tale of Goldilocks and the Three Bears. And here's the modern, scientifically accurate version of the fairy tale. And in this version, of course, it's the middle bowl, the middle-sized bowl, that's the correct temperature to drink. The hot bowl will, of course, be the largest bowl, because that's going to cool down the most slowly. It's got the most thermal inertia. The littlest bowl, on the other hand, will be too cold, because it cools down the most rapidly. And it will be the medium-sized bowl that Goldilocks finds just right to drink. And just like the three bowls, one's too hot, one's too cold, and one's just right, with the different periods that we're talking about today, some of the periods are going to be too old and too weird, others are going to be too young and not weird enough, and the Cretaceous, I will argue, is just the right age and just the right amount of weirdness to be awesome. So what do I mean by this? Well, the Ediacaran and the Cambrian are both over 500 million years ago. So the animals are so weird and so old and so unlike anything today that we can't really make out what they are at all. Take, for instance, the Ediacaran animal called Dickinsonia. It's just a featureless blob. Scientists can't even decide whether or not it's an animal. On the other hand, the Cambrian Anomalocaris, they know it's an animal, but they can't work out whether it's one animal or three. Again, it's so weird. And Hallucigenia, another Cambrian animal, they literally can't make head or tail of it. Which way's up, which way's down? Some of the best scientists in the world can't work that out. And if we can't even work out what something is, how can it be awesome? The Cenozoic, on the other hand, suffers the opposite problem. Most of the fossils from the Cenozoic are from a period known as the Pleistocene, which is about 50,000 years ago. That's not very long ago compared to most of the other fossils we're talking about today. So these fossils are very young and very similar to animals that are alive today. They're not weird enough to be awesome. Diprotodon, for all of its impressive size, is really just an oversized wombat. Most of the Cenozoic fossils that we see today in South Australia, they were alive and running around only yesterday. So the question is, if you're digging around the Cenozoic, are you really doing paleontology? Or, as Costa would say, are you just gardening? Now, the Cretaceous, aha. That was about 100 million years ago. This is the intermediate aged period. And I'm going to argue that that's exactly long enough to be weird and exactly long enough to be awesome. Just weird enough to be awesome. Here's an example. These long-necked Cretaceous marine reptiles called elasmosaurs, which are a type of snake-necked plesiosaur. They're familiar enough to be easily recognizable as reptiles. We can look at every single bone in their body and work out what that bone's called and what that bone did and how that bone was adapted to the animal's lifestyle. But at the same time, the strange body plan of plesiosaurs, these elasmosaurs, is completely unlike anything alive today. So that's why they're awesome. They're both familiar enough to understand, but different enough to be really, really weird. And the most famous elasmosaur of all happens to be from South Australia. This is the Adaman plesiosaur, which is on display in the top gallery of the South Australian Museum. And here's some awesome facts about it. Awesome fact number one, it's the finest and largest opalized fossil in the entire world. It would have been about 6 meters long, and it comprises about 30 kilograms of precious opal. And virtually all the opalized fossils in the world are found from Australia, from rocks of this period, the awesome Cretaceous. Second awesome fact, and this has to do with the animals' feeding habits. For a long time, we knew that elasmosaurs ate fish and squid-like animals called belemnites, that you can see here. But recently we discovered that it also uses its long neck to dig about in the substrate, to dig into the sea floor and pick up food from that area. And we know this because we have fossilized stomach contents. And these stomach contents are animals that live on the sea floor, clams and scallops and things like that. Third awesome fact is, of course, that these animals show that Australia was underwater during most of the Cretaceous. I mean, elasmosaurs were clearly ocean-going reptiles, giant whale-like things, but today they're found in the middle of the desert, in places like Andamuka, which is where the Adamant plesiosaur was found. And this, of course, shows that Australia was underwater during the Cretaceous 100 million years ago. Why was Australia underwater? Well, there was a lot of volcanoes erupting, throwing greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, like humans are doing today. And what that did was make the atmosphere 10 degrees warmer. So the Earth was a lot hotter. And the North and South poles completely melted. All that iced up water flowed into the oceans and raised sea levels by over 100 metres. If that happened today, the Sydney Harbour Bridge would be underwater. What happened 100 million years ago was the sea rushed into the centre of Australia from the Gulf of Carpentaria and covered up most of the eastern central half of Australia, forming a vast inland sea called the Eromanga Sea. And that's where the Adamant plesiosaur and turtles and a host of other awesome Cretaceous animals lived. The final awesome fact about elasmosaurs is they gave birth to live young. Even though they were reptiles, and most reptiles give birth, most reptiles lay eggs, these animals gave birth to live young. They didn't clamber ashore to lay eggs like sea turtles today. And we know that because we've got direct fossil evidence. Here's the fossil mother plesiosaur with its babies curled up inside. So, just like young Goldilocks found some bowls too hot, others too cold, and one just right, I think paleontologists are finding some periods just too weird, others not weird enough, and it's the Cretaceous, which is just the right amount of weird to be awesome.
I'm a plesiosaur from the Triassic to Cretaceous shores. You may think it just a tad bizarre. We are not what you may think we are. Oh, I'm not a dinosaur. I'm not a dinosaur. So hold your tongue, don't get it all wrong, 'cause I'm telling you all what's for. I'm not a dinosaur. Ocean hunting, I'm a carnivore. Live the same time as the dinosaurs. Listen closely and you'll see the light. Need to tell you, then you'll get it right. Oh, I'm not a dinosaur. I'm not a dinosaur. So hold your tongue, don't get it all wrong, 'cause I'm telling you all what's for. I'm not a dinosaur. Fossils tell us the prehistory. We swam in the Eromanga Sea. Many species for us to explore. Just remember, I'm a plesiosaur, not a dinosaur. I'm not a dinosaur. I'm not a dinosaur. So hold your tongue, don't get it all wrong, 'cause I'm telling you all what's for. I'm not a dinosaur. I'm not a dinosaur. I'm not a dinosaur. So hold your tongue, don't get it all wrong, 'cause I'm telling you all what's for. I'm not I'm not a dinosaur.